All right, hello everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of Student Affairs Live. Student Affairs Live is your weekly web show that's all about topics that student affairs professionals want to learn and hear more about. So today we've got an awesome episode. Again, folks, this is Student Affairs Live, your weekly web show. Please feel free to follow the action at higheredlive.com. That's our website. Also, we'll be tweeting all sorts of things throughout the show. So please feel free to follow Higher Ed Live, that's at Higher Ed Live, that's our Twitter account, as well as use the hashtag SALive. So please feel free. And folks, my name is Eric Stoller. I'm the host of Student Affairs Live, and we're going to have a great show today. And it looks like my lighting is off a little bit, so hopefully we'll get that fixed. I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor. Student Affairs Live is sponsored by Integral, the creators of the Schools app on Facebook. Be sure to check out their webinar series about how they can help you leverage Facebook to increase yield and retention. That happens this Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern, and we're going to send out a tweet with that link in just a few seconds. So, really big show today, really excited about it. Want to sort of announce our guest. Stacy Oliver is going to be on today. Stacy, could you say hi to everybody? Oh, hold on here. Let me get your audio fixed. Having all sorts of technical wizardry going on today. There you go. Say hi again.
Hi, everyone.
Awesome. Stacy, by the way, everybody, is the Assistant Director of Housing and Residence Life at Indiana University South Bend. So we're going to be talking in just a few minutes about the SAchat. So as you know, sort of a feature each week on Student Affairs Live that I like to call Challenge and Support. It's where I break down the news, what's happening in higher education, what's happening right now. So I want to just start off right away and tell you one thing that I noticed this week. Seth Odell did an amazing show last week, or this past Sunday, on Higher Ed Live. It was all about commencement. He called the show Commencement 2.0, and it was just an awesome broadcast. Lots of tips, lots of information. If you are in any way involved with commencement at your institution, watch this show because Seth drops about 3 days worth of information in about 45 minutes. So lots of info there. Really wanted to give a shout out to Seth. Alright, so as many of you know, last week we had a bit of news come out about consolidation, NASPA and ACPA. Well, this week there was an email that came out on Monday to anybody who is a member of NASPA. ACPA said, hey, you want to try us out for a little while, sort of get a trial membership, a trial run with the association? Come on over. So from May 1st to December 31st, ACPA is actually going to extend a complimentary sort of get-to-know-us membership to every current NASPA member. So for those of you who are members of NASPA and you're not a member of ACPA, please feel free to check out that because it's kind of nice to get a chance to see what both associations are like in the form of that complimentary membership. Alright, so I saw an article this week on Inside Higher Ed with an interesting title. It was called Insert Word Here in a Can. And it was about a new beverage, a new sort of alcoholic beverage, similar to a Four Loko. And it's called Blast. And again, it's just another one of those sort of super loaded with alcohol and caffeine type beverages they're really designed for one purpose and one purpose only, and that's just to get you extremely intoxicated. Because if anybody has ever tried Four Loko, it's not about the taste, because it tastes like something that you would use to clean stuff off of your floor. So again, for those folks who work in health promotion, health and wellness, take a look at that article. There's just a good conversation going on over there. So some folks who were on the East Coast may have missed the announcement live just due to the fact that it was so late. But obviously a lot of us know Sunday night was when the President of the United States, Barack Obama, came on the air with a special announcement to announce that Osama bin Laden had been killed in a small town in Pakistan. And I wanted to give a shout out to Ken Elmore, who led what he calls a coffee and conversation with students at Boston University. Ken is the Dean of Students there, and there's a live stream that you can watch of the event. They recorded it, and it was just a really good conversation that took place. Ken facilitated the conversation, and it was just really useful for folks, I think, who are experiencing these conversations all over their campus to take a look at that, how Ken facilitated it, some of the questions that came up, some of the thoughts that were brought out from it, because it was a major day for a lot of us. I think a lot of us can probably recall where we were during 9/11, and I think it'll probably be the same way where we'll remember where we were at least for that announcement, just because it's not every day that you get an announcement from the President of the United States on a Sunday night. It was what, 11 o'clock for some folks on the East Coast, so it's getting up there in terms of time. Last sort of element for challenge and support today. Folks in Alabama, in the Tuscaloosa region, at the University of Alabama, they got hit really hard weather-wise. There's just been wacky weather this season, and there's been a lot of devastation. So please feel free to go to the University of Alabama's tornado relief website. You can find out ways you can help, ways you can donate some money, and just give some help over there to those folks who have been impacted by the weather in the region. So as many of you know, I like to give an unsolicited shout out of the week to a person, a place, a thing, a company, a beverage, you name it. And this week's unsolicited shout out of the week is to bigthink.com. Bigthink is a website that provides a ton of content. This screenshot happens to be about Facebook, but they provide a ton of information about a variety of topics, from philosophy to physics to business to social issues, you name it. They just produce a lot of really good content through videos, blog posts, etc. I've been following them on Twitter for a long time, and I've just found them to be a really interesting source of information that I don't think a lot of folks necessarily know about. So unsolicited shout out of the week this week goes to Big Think. So I'd like to bring on my guest. Many of you already probably know Stacy Oliver. Stacy, as I said earlier, is the Assistant Director of Housing and Residence Life at Indiana University South Bend. Longest title ever. I think second only probably to Julie Kirchmeier.
This is true.
So I wanted to also say that one of the other hats that you wear, in addition to the many hats that you wear in your work and your sort of day-to-day stuff, is as moderator of the SAchat. And that's the topic for today's show, is sort of the SAchat. It's a hashtag, it's a rally point, and as many people weren't aware until maybe a few days ago, you're the moderator when the chat is happening, correct?
I sure am.
So Stacy, could you just tell me sort of what is the SAchat for those folks who are watching the show who've never even heard of this? Give them sort of the breakdown of maybe what it is, where it came from, the history, and what do we do with it now?
Sure. All the credit for SAchat really goes to Deborah Sanborn and Tom Kriegelstein. This was really their project from the onset. They realized that there were a lot of student affairs professionals using Twitter. I hope I'm telling the story accurately. I'm sure Deborah will interrupt if I'm not. They realized there were a lot of student affairs professionals using Twitter and thought, what a great resource to connect these professionals and help them facilitate some professional conversation. And so they hosted the first student affairs chat in October of 2009. And I think there were 7 people who participated that week. So they have continued these chats. So it's been about a year and a half now that these have been going on. It's certainly changed and evolved over the year and a half. It's formally one chat a week for an hour, which is moderated, but certainly the conversation goes on all week long about a variety of topics, whatever's on people's minds.
Okay, well that's good to hear. I'm adjusting my light, folks, by the way, if you're interested. When I lost the stream for a second, apparently all the lights went out in the city of Corvallis, and it's affected me. I'm not sure why. And Stacy, I was really hoping you were going to drink some Red Bull, but that's okay. We'll live with
I had to stick with my tried and true Coke Zero. I don't want to let people down.
Well, I did see on some of the White House photos from May 1st that the president drinks Diet Coke, so you're not alone there.
I can't do the Diet Coke. It's Coke Zero or nothing.
Okay, fair enough. So the SAchat, obviously, it's been around for quite a while. Deborah and Tom sort of spearheaded it, got it going. And you said people use it all the time, right?
Yes, absolutely. 24 hours a day.
Really? So folks really just use this hashtag. I mean, how would you describe it then? If they're using it 24 hours a day, there's not a person sort of staffing the hashtag waiting for conversation. How does that work?
Yeah. I think everybody really has different expectations of how they use that hashtag. Some people use it as a professional support network. They're just looking to connect with colleagues at other institutions and talk with them, share ideas. Some people are looking for resources and use it almost as a student affairs specific search engine. By adding that hashtag onto questions, they can find examples of policies and procedures, resources, program ideas. And then there are people who just use it to share general thoughts about student affairs, some not even really looking for professional development. It's almost like a support group for student affairs professionals on Twitter. You see those, I had another long day at the office, hashtag SAchat, and then immediately 5 people will respond with keep on swimming, or you can make it, it's almost the end.
Right, exactly. It's all sorts of things, from affirmation, resources, questions, answers. I've almost labeled it or described it as, it's almost sort of our digital cafeteria.
Yeah.
Folks show up at random sometimes, as opposed, there's the regular scheduled hashtag conversation that takes place on Thursdays, but when folks show up at 2 a.m., there could be 4 people there, 1 person there, or no one there.
Right.
And I think that's an interesting dynamic for a community, when usually communities come together and meet at sort of either times when they know other people are going to be there. There's certain expectations. And with the SAchat, we come together formally on Thursdays, but after that, it's sort of, you never know what you're going to get.
Right, and that really influences who people engage with. If you're on a similar schedule to someone else, you may see them all the time on Twitter, and there may be people who participate in the SAchat Thursday conversation you never see any other day of the week. So it's hard to really gauge how many people are involved in the community or using the hashtag, because we all operate with such different expectations of the community and are looking to get different things out of the experience.
Well, do you think that there's been an evolution then of the hashtag?
Oh, absolutely. And I think we've seen that pretty recently in the past couple of weeks. We saw it about a year ago at the same time. It seems to ebb and flow with our academic cycles, where we all tend to be a little tense at certain times of year, and it manifests in our community in some ways, that we really look to this community and then things kind of fall apart at some points where expectations aren't being met, or we just have more reflective dialogue about who we are as a community.
Well, and I think that it seems to me that there's always a bump in terms of participation after the NASPA and ACPA conferences, the annual conferences, as well as some of the other annual conferences. But it seems like March is a time when there's just a big bump in terms of usage and people coming in for the first time. I mean, have you experienced that? Have you seen that?
Actually, the first time I ever moderated SAchat was in March of 2010, right after NASPA. So that was definitely baptism by fire. There were hundreds of people participating that day, definitely one of the largest chats they've ever had. And that we saw that again this year. The spike just happens. We have some great evangelists for the SAchat hashtag in the community. And so it's a wonderful problem to have. But we see that big spike in March. And then for the past 2 years, we've seen in April that there's been some dissonance in the community and a little bit of storming from some of the people who regularly participate in chat.
Absolutely. Well, I think, what was it, last year it was more about people were using the hashtag with every time they would tweet, especially new folks that were brand new to Twitter. They had, just sort of the nuances of how to use the tool to engage with the community. It was something that people just learn over time, and for those of us that have used it for quite a while, we've sort of just developed these things that become second nature. And I think for folks who are new to it, when they start tweeting things like, for example, I'll do this on the air, I drank a Red Bull today, hashtag SAchat. Well, nobody cares if I drank a Red Bull today.
I care.
Well, thank you. And I know you had one earlier. But
I did.
I think and that was the sort of the impetus for the storm that occurred last year around the conversation, just because it went to a movie, SAchat, did the dishes, SAchat. And it was everything that they were tweeting. And I think folks over time eventually got the fact that if you want to tweet the nuances of your life, that's fine. It doesn't necessarily have to be shared with the community in sort of the virtual cafeteria space all the time either.
Right. And I think that's really reflective of how people start to identify with the community and start to understand what the community is and how it can be used. For some people just looking to make a connection with other student affairs professionals, they see that as a way to do that because they think that they're sharing a common experience. And for those of us, like you said, who have been around the block a couple times, we're looking for content at that hashtag and not always personal details of someone's life.
Absolutely. Well, I think it's just a different... It's just like the telephone, right? The telephone is a tool that we've all learned to use from an early age, and with Twitter, we're still figuring out how to use it. And if you've been following folks on Twitter for a long time, you follow a great number of folks, you have an expectation that this network that you've interacted with is going to provide value to you in some way. And it could be humor, it could be fun, and it's just... I do like also learning about stuff that happens in folks' daily lives, but it just doesn't necessarily it's not appropriate at all times for the hashtag.
Right. And I would be surprised if anyone is following the SAchat hashtag all the time. I think some people are surprised by that when I admit that. I do not actively have a search going for the SAchat hashtag other than Thursdays from 1 to 2 p.m. I check it a couple times a day if I think about it, but it's not something pressing or urgent in my life. Those conversations just happen organically and naturally, so it's not something I really keep an eye on or monitor.
Well, I think both of us can speak to the fact of sort of when it was first coming out and when less than 100 people were using the hashtag. And that at the time, I remember when TweetDeck first came out, and I think at one time I had about 32 columns in TweetDeck on an iMac.
You're a crazy person.
And it was like mission control, right? I was monitoring the internet. And one of the things I would look at, though, in one of the columns that was always visible was the SAchat, but it was always the same folks that I could that I knew. You know, it was you, it was Deborah, it was Tom, it was Ed, it was Ray, it was Liz. You know, it was folks who had started using the hashtag early on, and so you got used to following them, used to just sort of conversing with them. And now it went from less than 100 folks using it to, what do you think, 1,000 plus?
Easily, yes.
And I think that's the question is, sort of what's the evolution of the community then when the cafeteria goes from a room that had maybe 10 people in it talking to one another to the same room, but 1,000 people are trying to come in there?
This is an ongoing conversation with the leadership behind the SAchat because we really want to understand where our community is and where it's going. And something that Deborah and I have been talking about recently is doing a content analysis of the hashtag to find out what people are sharing and what they're really contributing to conversation. And then also doing some assessment of people using the hashtag of what they're hoping to get out of using the hashtag to find out whether or not we're meeting the expectations that people are coming in with, or whether they're finding it to be difficult to use or difficult to navigate, or just not the right platform for what they're looking for. So it's been a huge change since I started participating in, my first chat was December of 2010. So I've definitely seen a lot of the growth and change and expansion and fighting and arguing. And at the end of the day, we all come back together and have a conversation.
Yeah. Well, and folks, by the way, keep using the SA Live hashtag. There's just a lot of stuff that's flying right now. I think Jeff Lale is trying to poke fun at me. He says that I'm talking like an elitist. I think that Jeff, he introduced it, so I'm going to run with it here a little bit.
Okay.
Last week, my unsolicited shout out of the week was James Fryer. He posted on his personal blog a post that's just sort of opened the door to a conversation around this kind of group dynamic of thousands of people using a hashtag and of certain folks feeling like they were left out or that they weren't necessarily being heard amongst the thousands literally that are using this hashtag on a weekly basis. And it was a good post because it made a lot of us think about it. It was, I think, in a way, it was almost a better conversation than sort of year one of the storm that occurred. It was, it wasn't necessarily how to use the hashtag. It was about certain folks get a response if they put something out there on the hashtag or they get retweeted 17 times and other folks might not necessarily get that same kind of reaction.
Right.
What do you think about that? You, as the SAchat mod, as the SA blog on Twitter, you see a lot of action on Twitter, and you've talked about this to me. Maybe just share your experience. Sort of, what's the difference when you're tweeting as SA blog or versus tweeting as Stacey L. Oliver?
Yeah, for a long time, people didn't know that I was moderator. It's only been recently that we've really come out and said, yes, Stacey is the person behind the avatar. And it was never intended to be a secret. It was just one of those things that we thought nobody really needed to know. I do see a lot. As SA Blog, I have the benefit of seeing not only the active chat on Thursdays, but also being able to engage with people in other hours to refer them to resources or help them connect with others. There are people who will engage with me as the SA Blog who don't engage with me as Stacey L. Oliver, which is fine. That's everybody's personal decision to make. It's so hard to reach out to everyone using the hashtag, though, and to make them feel included and welcomed. And I try really hard as the SA Blog to make sure that everyone feels welcome, especially when they're participating in a Thursday chat. You referenced this too. When there were 100 people using the hashtag, it was easy to have your tweets noticed and retweeted. And so there's that core group who's been there since the beginning. But now with thousands of people using it, things just get lost in the conversation. The feeds move too quickly. It's hard to find the specific person who can answer the question that you're looking for.
Absolutely. And I'm just following the hashtag conversation for SA Live. There's just a lot of action happening here. Jeff Jackson makes the claim that he says, there was a time when I read all SAchat messages daily.
Wow.
And I think, though, that when you look at it sort of back in the day, 2009, early 2010, you could do that. And nowadays, like you said, it just happens too fast. There's too much action out there. I know for a fact that when I put something out there using the SAchat hashtag, if I ask a question and I don't get a response, I just chalk it up to all sorts of factors. Folks are too busy. They're at lunch. They don't care. They don't have the answer necessarily to what I'm asking. I asked a poor question. I think that maybe Lisa Endersby asked a question earlier via Twitter about how do we help this community grow as it gets larger. And maybe it comes down to enhancing some of the information that's on the SA Collaborative blog around sort of, this is the SAchat, here's how it works now with 1,000 people, because there isn't a leader. We're all coming together as a sort of peer engagement space. And how does that work? And I think, when some folks, they have this expectation that they ask a question and it's going to get answered, and if it doesn't get answered, then people don't either like them, or they didn't like their question, or they didn't like the topic. And I just don't think that's the case.
No, I think that people take that really personally when they don't get a response. So hearing you say that you don't get a response sometimes may be affirming for some people. And there are certainly times I don't get responses. I asked a question last week about community engagement assessment, and nobody responded on the SAchat hashtag or the ResLife hashtag. I have a hard time believing that no one had an answer. I think I just timed my question really poorly. And so maybe addressing some of those peak hours and having better information on the blog, like you said. I think we also have some members who are really good about taking responsibility, and I hate to use the word members because it's such a counter-community phrase.
Hold on, let me get my wallet and get my ID out.
You don't have a members-only jacket, Eric? Come on.
That's
I think
a can of worms right there.
Right. I think we do have some people who are really good about directing others to resources when they see a question. Oberbecca, who yesterday directed someone to a resource about student veterans, she actually doesn't work with student veterans, but saw the question on the SAchat hashtag and was able to direct that person to the resources they needed. So if more of us could do that, I think that would be really helpful. But we don't all have time to do that. We're not all watching the feed all the time.
Well, and some of us know each other in real life too. I think that when you mention Oberbecca, I know for a fact that that's Becca Obergefell, who works at UNC Pembroke, and Becca and I have met in person and conversed and whatnot. And so there is that sort of, some folks come out and they see something and they go, okay, I'm going to help out right away. I thought that Curtis Tarver, he tweeted this yesterday. He said something really good. It said, tagging something with SAchat or any other hashtag for that matter doesn't guarantee a response. It just increases the likelihood that others will see it.
Right.
And I think that that's the case, right? If you put it out there, maybe somebody sees it.
We're not a 24-hour call center. We don't have volunteers sitting there all the time waiting to answer your questions. And that would be a great resource if we did. So if someone wants to start something like that, let me know. But we just don't have experts standing by to take your call when you tweet out that request for information.
Right. There's a phone line. But instead of answering the phone, they're actually just using their thumbs.
Exactly.
I think that Kevin Cleary makes a really good point. It's important to realize time zones when you ask questions. 8 o'clock my time is 11 o'clock at night on the East Coast. Right. And I think those are important considerations. It is interesting to see sort of the arc of participation throughout the day of the hashtag. And I think that, you said Deborah was going to, possibly Deborah Sanborn, looking at some data collection. I know that Kevin Guidry, I believe he tweets at Kevin R. Guidry. He's a doctoral student. He's done some sort of visualizations around activity and engagement using the SAchat, and I think that the more research that comes out of the benefits of this type of peer-to-peer learning will help us sort of figure it out, because we're still figuring it out, right? The reasons we're having these epic storming conversations in April is because we're still figuring it out.
And one of the things you and I have talked about is that you don't see these storming conversations happening on other hashtags. I've never seen people who use the academic advising hashtag or the Greek chat hashtag have the same tone of conversations or the same candor of conversation about community that we have, which means that people feel really invested in what has been created here and established here. But it also makes it a little hard because it is just a hashtag. There is no membership card. Nobody signed up or joined. You don't need an invitation to participate. So meeting everyone's expectations just isn't a reality.
Yeah. Well, and I think Cindy Kane, it's attributed to Cindy Kane. I don't necessarily know if Cindy will claim it fully, but the context of, or the idea of lurking is learning. She's mentioned that before, and I think that for some folks coming in, there's just different ways of interacting with people. When I walk into a room of people that I don't necessarily know, my first instinct isn't to walk up to everybody and say, "Hi, my name's Eric." I try to feel it out a little bit. Naturally I'm an introvert, and so I think some folks come in and they want to start tweeting right away at the SAchat hashtag, and sort of it's not a group, but there are group norms that emerge, and I think that's an interesting phenomenon that happens because we all engage in spaces uniquely. And I think that that'll be an interesting concept to address, because I think that as moderator, you get to see everything from the folks who sort of hold back and listen, as well as the folks who want to just jump in, right?
Right. And there are certainly some people I've probably dragged kicking and screaming into a conversation because they tweeted something and didn't put the hashtag on it, and I saw it and added the hashtag. I see everything, and that can be great and it can be bad. But I do see every tweet that comes through on that hashtag, especially on Thursday afternoons, Eastern time. It's only afternoon, my time zone. But it's hard because there are people who just really don't know how to engage. We've also recently gone through this mindset of we should be telling other people how to use Twitter and social media in general, like telling people when they should have a bio and what they should have for their picture. And when we do things like that, we make it hard for those people to feel comfortable. Sometimes they just want to feel it out first and see if this is really where they want to be and what they want to be using.
Exactly. Well, when you tell people how to do anything, it doesn't work as well as when you model for them. When you model behavior or when you show them something versus telling, it seems to be more helpful. And I apologize to folks on Twitter. I haven't interjected enough Star Wars isms into the show yet. Stacey, I keep wanting to say that your points have been as sharp as a lightsaber.
Thank you.
But really, I don't necessarily know that lightsabers are sharp because they cut through everything.
That's true.
Just like your awesome rhetoric.
I'm glad that I could be here on May 4th.
Yes, exactly. And obviously, May the 4th be with you. It's an important day.
And also with you. That was for Becca.
Thank you. Thank you. Well done. So, one of the things that I think is probably the most awesome attributes of the SAchat have been the recaps, the archives of the conversations. And these are posted usually on the SA Collaborative blog. I'm sure Ardith will be tweeting that from Higher Ed Live every now and again. I know that what the hashtag was used in the past to archive those. Two questions. Are those archives going to still continue? Are there going to be recaps? And,
there are.
Oh, okay. And it's one of those two-part, it's a student affairs question, 10 questions in one sentence.
Okay.
We like those, right? You're taking notes during the question. So first question, will the archives continue, the recaps continue? And two, do you think that people really see the value in those recaps? Because I think they're a gold mine of information.
The recaps will still continue. We did take a 2-week hiatus when What the Hashtag disappeared without any notice. That was a really frustrating 2 weeks for us because we had some great conversations during those 2 weeks and then couldn't recap them. We are beta testing a new transcript service that Tom hooked us up with. And I actually recently transitioned the transcript responsibilities to Seth Hagler, who is graduating from Vanderbilt University. Hire him. He's phenomenal. But shameless plug for Seth. So I recently transitioned that to Seth, and he has done a great job making sure that we still have those recaps. They look a little bit different now than they used to because of the new beta system that we're using, but they'll continue. And I hope people do see the value in them. We know that they did previously. They are editable Google Docs so that people can not only read them, but they can add their thoughts if they weren't able to participate or thought of something later or have a resource to share. We really want that to be a continuation of the conversation and allow that to continue to grow and be a living document. So if I go and look at a archive from a year ago, it may look completely different than it did the day that it was posted.
Oh, I love the archives. I think that they've been, there's ones on social media, multicultural competency, leadership, you name it. They're literally a professional development goldmine for anybody that wants to go back and look at a particular topic, because the conversations are usually rich and full of resources. So one thing that I know that took place a little while ago is I wrote an article for InsideHigherEd.com on my blog, and I called it Lurking is Learning, or the SAchat, Feel Free to Lurk and Learn. It was kind of a shout out to vendors. And one thing that has surprised me, and maybe you could talk about this, is almost the lack of vendors who are either participating or just using the hashtag. It's sort of surprising to me that they're not using it.
Yeah, I'm not really sure why. We've definitely seen vendors bomb other hashtags that happened during the NACA conference this year. We just really haven't seen that on SAchat, and I like to think, because it helps me sleep at night, that they're just being really respectful of the conversation that goes on. I don't know if that's true. It's what I hope is happening, but certainly it's out there. People know that there are student affairs professionals gathered around this hashtag and actively reading it. This is not an open invitation for a vendor to start bombing that hashtag. We like that you're keeping your distance. We've also done some monitoring of that as well, though. If we see a vendor getting a little too pushy, Tom, Deborah, or I will email the vendor to explain, we're really kind of making sure that this is good content. If you'd like to engage with our members, by all means, I need to stop using that word. If you want to engage with participants, by all means, please feel free to do that.
How much? What are the membership dues again? How much does it cost?
Mine are comped because I'm the moderator, so you'd have to check with Tom.
Volunteer opportunities are available.
Volunteer opportunities are available. Volunteer opportunities are awarded based on engagement. So if you don't want a leadership opportunity, don't get too involved.
Right. Use it sparingly, otherwise they'll put you to work.
We will find you.
Right. They'll chase you down from the cafeteria. One of the things that I noted yesterday was that it seems that if you tweet certain topics, they tend to get more amplification through the hashtag. For example, if you talk about social media, or you talk about student life or leadership, those topics get maybe a bit more traction. What do you think? Why do you think it is that those topics maybe get a little bit more traction on the hashtag? And what do you think we can do to encourage the use of just the hashtag? Because I'm hoping those folks are on Twitter in other functional areas, maybe admissions, student conduct, veterans affairs. It just seems like there are opportunities to involve other folks in the sort of student affairs realm, and they're not necessarily coming in to use the hashtag.
I think we just have a critical mass of professionals in some of those areas, like student life, student activities, residence life. And so just as a consequence to that, those are the most used topics. I know that ASCA has made a push to have more conduct officers using Twitter. Carolyn Goals and Matt Gregory have done great work with that, showing other professionals the value of having conversations via Twitter. It's hard, especially when there may only be one or two people on a campus in a functional area. How do we reach out and find those people? And that's something that, we really rely on our evangelists to do at conferences and help seek those people out and connect them with the scheduled chat, but also just the ongoing conversation. But certainly if other people have ideas of how we can be reaching out to professionals, we would love to hear that.
Well, I know that I'm going to be going to the national conference on student recruitment, marketing, and retention. It's a Noel Levitz event in a couple months, and I'm really hoping to get some folks in the enrollment management space to start using the hashtag, because admissions, registrar, financial aid, where are those folks? I mean, they have a ton of stuff that we all have to be cognizant of, that we work with all the time, and yet they're not necessarily using that space. One of the folks, I saw a tweet fly by here as I'm watching the action on the SA Live hashtag, said that it's been nice to sort of watch the evolution of other hashtags in the profession. The ACADVA, the ACADV hashtag, the academic advising hashtag, SA Grad. It seems like if you put SA in front of anything, I know, SA Live, ironic, but it seems like if you put an SA in front of something, it automatically becomes a student affairs hashtag.
It's true. That is a secret formula, and now you've let the secret out.
Right. I did it. I've told everyone, if you want to make a hashtag for student affairs, put an S and an A in front of it, and you're gold. Well, that's good. How long do you plan on continuing to be mod of the chat? I know you do this. Let's see, it's Thursdays and it's at 10 o'clock Pacific time,
1 o'clock Eastern.
Thank you. And that's when you moderate for the hour, right? And do you also do some of the lead up tweets that happen and the polls and all those other things that the SA blog puts out?
I do. We recently just shifted some responsibilities around. Deborah has full responsibility for the blog. She coordinates all of the writers at the SA Collaborative blog. She recruits new writers, gets them set up, make sure that we have posts coming out. So I've really taken on more of the chat, and I do the topic poll. I do some of the teasers leading into it. Certainly we have some crossover. If I'm not available, someone else will tweet the promos. Joe Janice actually just took over the Tuesday tally that was recently handed over to him, so he's doing a great job with that. And like I mentioned earlier, Seth has taken over the transcript duties from me. So we had a little shift in responsibilities. But generally, when you see the SA blog tweeting, it is me.
Okay, and you do this during the day. What's been the response or the reaction at your campus? Do they know that you're the SA blog moderator? I mean, is it a secret? Do you hide in your office?
I do hide in my office, but that's a normal thing. My supervisor actually has been really supportive. He just started in May of last year. So I was already doing this when he came on board. So it wasn't really a conversation of, is this okay? It was more a conversation of, this is something I do on Thursdays. I use it as my lunch hour. I eat lunch at my desk while I moderate. So it hasn't been a conflict. I also do my job while I moderate. Life goes on in this office while SAchat goes on too. Students are coming in and out. My supervisor's coming in and out. I'm on the phone. I'm answering questions at the front desk. I've always said there needs to be a Ustream of what's going on in my office while I'm moderating, because it is a goat rodeo, for lack of a better phrase.
You heard it here first, folks. Moderating is a goat rodeo.
It is.
Wow, I think that trumps my hosting this show is like flying a helicopter while doing a show. That's pretty amazing. So what music do you listen to? I heard that was a question that we saw on Twitter earlier.
That has come up a couple times. I actually have a finely tuned Pandora station that I listen to. It is the only time I listen to it is that 1 hour a week. It is a mix of rap and hip hop. I have to keep the energy level up while I moderate, because you never know what's going to happen in a scheduled chat.
Now, are there certain topics, you look at the poll when folks are, the voting poll for the topic, and sometimes it's been close, right? It's been 30% or so breakdown of the different things, and when you look at them, are there certain ones you're rooting for, or are you sort of topic agnostic? You're not necessarily rooting for a topic.
They're definitely my favorites. There are some that I root for. Things have been a little easier now that I'm doing the topic poll, with all credit to Deborah, because she was doing a phenomenal job. There would be weeks where I would sit down to moderate and not have any idea what she meant by the topic that was actually voted on, and then would have to email her frantically as chat was starting to say, what exactly am I supposed to be talking about today? But now that I'm choosing the topic poll options, it's a little bit easier, because I have some idea of what it is I'm going to talk about if any of them win.
If any of them win, it's a victory. I like that.
It is a victory.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, folks, hopefully Ardith can tweet out the poll for the vote for the topic, and that happens. When is that? Every Wednesday.
Every Wednesday. Wednesday afternoons.
And then there's the Tuesday tally, which is just a random sort of poll, vote on a topic kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily for the show, but it's what's your favorite color or something.
Exactly.
Okay. Hey, we're live on the air. Sometimes it's hard to come up with stuff off the cuff.
No, I understand. Joe and I both follow the hashtag and try to make each of those polls relevant to conversations that have gone on. So right around conference season, you probably saw a lot of Tuesday tallies about national conferences. The chat topics that are voted on are always something related to conversation that's been going on with the hashtag over the past week.
Well, it's we've talked about this as a peer engagement space, but it's professional development. In a sense. I mean, it's almost like if this was an association, you would be one of our leaders. You would be one of our mainstays in terms of volunteerism and doing a lot of stuff. It's like folks who volunteer for a conference or a big event. They do a lot of work, and they don't necessarily get the credit that they should. So I think kudos to you for moderating the chat, putting together the questions, and honestly doing a great job of following the action. I'm guessing that during the chat now, I haven't been able to participate in a few weeks. It's really fast as more people have joined. How do you follow everything? What do you use to follow the action?
I should have taken a picture of my command center. I actually have 3 monitors going. I have Hootsuite running on one and then TweetDeck on the other 2. So I'm logged in as myself and as the essay blog. Occasionally, I get to participate in chat while I'm moderating chat. It's fantastic. That doesn't happen all the time. It's
so
kind
wait, you participate as Stacey L. Oliver, your Twitter account?
I do. It's very meta to answer questions that I've just asked myself, which also means I'm usually the first one to respond because I know what the question is. So yeah, 3 monitors going. It's intense, but it's really, really fun to do.
I like that you called it a command center.
There's no better word to describe that.
Well, and the fact is, now everybody knows, you've just outed yourself, that when you ask a question as the essay blog, that if your Twitter account responds with an answer, that they know that the reason why you've gotten your answer out so quickly is that you knew it was coming already.
Exactly.
As opposed to, man, Stacey is so quick today with her answers.
Sometimes the answer is pre-typed into TweetDeck before the essay blog has even finished asking the question.
Good to know. Wow. We're getting all kinds of inside information here, folks.
It's true.
So let's look at the future a little bit.
Okay.
As more and more people start using Twitter and more people in student affairs start using the hashtag, what do you see as the next step? Because it seems like at some point in time, it's going to be hard to have that goat rodeo and wrangle those conversations, because there literally will be, it'll take 25 minutes just for everyone to introduce themselves.
And now I only give them 6 minutes. Yeah, I think those functional area chats are going to become more and more important and more used. We love those. We think those are a great little offshoot of what we've been doing and fully support those. We advertise them and promote them as well. I hope the essay chat scheduled on Thursdays always becomes the rally point for the community to have a more general conversation about the direction of our field. So I really see it becoming broader conversation. Thinking back even a year ago, we were having more specific conversations about conduct and creative sanctioning. And so people would just not attend if it didn't apply to them. And now we're doing a better job of making the conversation inclusive of everyone and picking topics that every functional area could participate in.
So it's the challenge of, if it's too narrow, everyone won't participate. If it's so broad, though, then it becomes everybody coming together. So I don't know, maybe it's a mix. 1 week you do a focused topic, something like student conduct. The next week it's more general.
Right.
Nathan Victoria, who does social media for NASPA, just tweeted, I hear we're going to talk about helium here, and I made mention earlier on Twitter that there was a helium balloon or something to do with helium, and the answer to that question, Nathan, is that Stacey, I believe you are in a LEED certified building.
Silver LEED certified building, yes.
Gotcha. Silver LEED certified, and it has the auto sensors on the light. And if you don't move enough in your office, it turns the lights off. So you've got a helium balloon, right, that's sort of bouncing into the sensor?
It is currently hanging on the sensor, and it's doing a fantastic job. The helium balloon deserves a shout-out for its help today.
I love these random shout-outs along the way. Shout out to the helium balloon. Now, you said you use all these tools. You're on a Mac as well? Is that how you follow it?
Yeah, I use my desktop computer with the 2 monitors, and then I have my MacBook Pro going as well.
Okay, fancy. Well, folks, please feel free to ask questions via the Essay Live hashtag. We'll be taking those questions all the way up until the hour. And I've noticed that there's some vendors who actually started the conversation here on Twitter. They're saying, hey, we're here, but we don't want to tweet bomb, which I think is nice. That vendors have realized that they can learn a lot about us, the profession, just by lurking and learning. There's a ton of information. And also, Laura Pasquini makes a good point. We don't want to use essay for everything necessarily on Twitter, because South Africa and abbreviations. Please note that Essay Live is actually, I think it's either, I want to say it's Italian for salivate. So, you never know what you're going to get with a hashtag. Yeah, well, it's so true. You drink Red Bull, you get a lot of saliva going. Honestly, we've had more sarcasm on this show, I think, because the 2 of us are on here, than I've had on any previous episode.
That's true. We did bring a lot of snark to this.
Lots of snark. I just haven't had a chance to put any Star Wars in, though.
I feel like you're kind of letting me down. I was promised about Star Wars.
I want to say that the odds of me failing at Star Wars humor is probably something like 3,720 to 1. And I'm not really happy with that, so I gotta work harder.
That was good.
Thank
Congratulations.
you. Subtle, subtle. So, folks, please ask questions. We've got and Stacy will not suck the helium out of the balloon at the end of the show. I just want to point that out.
Did someone ask for that?
Someone, Sarah Craddock asked if you were going to do that. I love that folks say on the hashtag. It's always entertaining. So, I think you mentioned it earlier. The sort of sub accounts, the sub hashtags that happen, the specialized ones that come out and sort of emerge organically will help with the traffic and with just the overall amount, because otherwise the SAchat sort of becomes like a giant bulletin board where it's lots of information but no one's really talking to each other.
Right. Yeah, it's the sub accounts, I guess, or the hashtags have really made it easier to find people in your own functional area, and maybe ask some targeted specific questions to those people. Like if I'm going to ask a question about Res Life, it's easier for me to hashtag it Res Life than SAchat, because I know that the people who are more likely to respond and have what I'm looking for are also following that hashtag.
Looks like I've got a question from Laura here, Laura Pasquini. Why does the SAchat community use terms like Sherpa, Guru, and Evangelist when discussing social media or other area of expertise? Well, I don't know if I've seen that too often, that there are folks that are labeled as those, kinds of nicknames or whatnot. Personally, I sort of detest whenever someone calls me a guru or a Sherpa or a ninja or a Jedi. I mean, you can call me a Jedi, let's be honest. You want to call me a Jedi, I'm okay with that today only. But I think there are enough people who use the hashtag all the time who, if you ask them a question directly, if that you could go to them or you can DM them if you're following each other, who will help you out. And I think that's another piece too, is if you don't get if you raise your hand in the massive sort of rowdy cafeteria space that is the SAchat, sometimes you're not necessarily going to get a response. But if you approach someone individually, maybe you'll get a response, you'll get some assistance.
Right. And I use Evangelist, and I've definitely used it a couple of times this afternoon, mostly to describe those people who are going out and talking about what SAchat is. I don't necessarily think that they would classify themselves as experts or gurus, but they're the people who are willing to hand out stickers for us at a conference. So maybe ambassadors would be a better word for that group of people.
I mean, I'm just old, right? I mean, let's just put it out there. I mean, we share a birthday. We were both born. Happy birthday, by the way, upcoming. I know it's May 9th is your birthday.
Yes, to you as well.
Thank you. And it's almost sort of like there are elders in the community who've just been doing it longer. It's just it's like blogging, writing, anything. There are people who came before you who have been doing it longer, who if you go to them for information, and they can share their experience with you. It's kind of a fact of life. I mean, there folks have been doing it for a while, and I think that you go to them for how to learn it. I mean, I didn't use Twitter off and on for a year. I just didn't get it. It didn't make any sense to me. From 2007 to 2008, I thought this thing is useless. I'm not getting anything out of it. And SAchat really, I think, for a lot of people, it's been their entry point into Twitter. I mean, at conferences, like you said, there are people who are guiding people along, showing them how to get involved and how to tweet. And I think, we're not charging dues, but we're giving out a whole lot of information and knowledge.
It's true. And I think that it's hard because it is professional development, and in some ways it does feel like an ongoing professional organization. And so we use words like when I joined SAchat or when I became a member of SAchat, and I'm guilty of it too. You've heard me say those things multiple times this afternoon, but it's so counter community, and it's so against everything that we stand for, which is peer-to-peer learning and open access professional development. So I'm going to challenge everyone to stop using those words, and I will also stop using them too.
Awesome. This is a personal challenge notified to everyone here. I'm just taking a look at everything that's happening on Twitter right now. Again, the hashtag SA Live is just blowing up. So if I missed your question, I do apologize. Feel free to tweet it again. I'm continuously looking at everything. Lots of information. I was asked... There it is. Okay. This was from... P.S. If you use a nickname, it's really hard for me to say your name on the air. So we'll just say Sue. This is from Sue. And Sue wants to know the best way for young professionals to get involved in their field, best professional organizations. See, this is the type of question that I think sometimes frustrates people, because if you didn't get an answer to this kind of question, and it was to the SA Live hashtag as well as to the SAchat hashtag, don't feel badly if you don't get an answer. Sometimes folks don't necessarily have that answer, or it's just the way it's framed. I wouldn't talk about the best organizations per se. I would talk about the ones that have been relevant to my life professionally. I mean, Stacy and I have both been members of various organizations, but differently. I'm a member of ACPA and NASPA. You're a member of which associations?
Glakuho and Akuho'ai.
Okay, so Glakuho and Akuho'ai. Okay, and I've been a member of NACADA in the past. So there's a perfect example of sometimes you ask a question. If you don't get a response, it's okay. Again, I'm going to keep asking and answering here. Jeff Jackson says, only on Twitter are you an expert for having 6 months or more experience. and that's the case, right? You'll see on people's profiles, that they're a social media ninja, and they have 4 followers, 1 tweet, and that's it.
Exactly. I don't trust those people.
Right. Oh, Student Life, I'm going to say the word out loud. Student Life Guru, that's at Student Life Guru, puts out a really good book, or a resource. I had to read Twitterville by Shel Israel. Have you read that book?
No, I haven't.
Shel Israel wrote a really good book. It's called Twitterville, and I'd say as a intro to Twitter for folks who are trying to either learn about it themselves or convince someone or work with someone in their office that it's something useful. It's a great book because it gives a lot of case studies from corporations, Starbucks, Sodexo, Dell, Ford, a bunch of different companies, and how they use Twitter and social media. But it's a great book. It gives out a lot of information.
Good.
So, Stacy, any final thoughts about the SAchat? Are you going to get a gold watch when you finally wrap up your moderating duties?
I don't know. It's a volunteer position, so I don't expect that I would get anything. It's been a wild ride, and I feel like I've probably had some of the best professional development of my life through this experience, not only from learning a ton about social media and engagement, but also because I have the privilege of watching the conversations happen on a variety of topics that I may never otherwise participate in. So I've learned about Greek life and academic advising and all sorts of functional areas, and even just specific scenarios that people share that I probably otherwise wouldn't have. So I've always considered it my privilege to serve as the moderator. And I say that, and I think people think I'm kidding or placating them, but I'm really not. I am honored that I get to do this because it is so much fun and such a great experience for me to learn about the broader field that we work in.
And I was going to say something really sarcastic about how you're sort of like Obi-Wan Kenobi, that you're a mentor, you're a curator of knowledge, really, when it comes to the SAchat. All that information that you see and you sort of participate with means that you are a really good source of information. So folks, really, when Stacey L. Oliver tweets, pay attention, because she tweets good stuff. When Stacy tweets as the SA blog, yes, it's coming from a account that's followed by a lot of folks, but again, Stacy has a lot of information and a lot of resources. So, Stacy, thank you for coming on the show. I think it's been really fun for folks to sort of find out, sort of behind the curtain, who you are, and no, I am not your father.
That would be awkward.
Yeah, born on the same day. Whoa.
Different years, though.
True. I think I'm a little older.
You are. You're also taller, so it works out.
Well, I'm not taller on the air. I think we're the same height on the air.
Okay, yeah. I appreciate that.
Well, thanks for coming on the show. And again, you're welcome anytime, because I think folks would love to hear more about the SAchat, and really we could talk about what you do at Indiana University South Bend, because there's some interesting stories there, I think, around this sort of residence life program and development and implementation.
Thanks. It's been a great conversation.
Thanks, Stacy. All right, folks, as we wrap up another episode of Student Affairs Live, I've got a few housekeeping items here I want to share. First thing is, May 11th, there isn't going to be a show. I'm actually going to be on the road. I am moving, and so I won't have internet access, and I won't be able to do a show. So May 11th, there won't be a show. However, please check out the @HigherEdLive Twitter account. We're going to be tweeting out some links to the archives. We've got a lot of shows a lot of programming content that you could take a look at. And my first show at my new place is going to be all about blogging. So May 18th, the first show is going to be all about blogging. And I'm just going to do it solo. I'm going to share all the bits and pieces that I've sort of picked up along the way as someone who's been a blogger since, 2004. I've had my own personal blog, and I've also been a paid blogger now for almost a year for Inside Higher Ed. And so I feel like I've got some stuff to say about blogging, best practices, some tips, things you should think about, because it seems like everybody's been blogging lately, and I just want to share some of that knowledge. So please stay tuned for that. And I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, as always. We're sponsored by Integral, the creators of the Schools app on Facebook. Be sure to check out their webinar series about how they can help you leverage Facebook to increase yield and retention. Now that happens this Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, and Ardith will send out a tweet with that link in a few moments. So as always, folks, thanks for watching. My name's Eric Stoller, the host of Student Affairs Live, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Thanks, everybody.